History does not often allow for quiet contradictions. It is built carefully, layer upon layer, each discovery reinforcing what came before. Civilizations rise, leave traces, and are interpreted through patterns that scholars learn to recognize. But occasionally something emerges that does not fit. Not because it is grand or monumental, but because it is precise in its defiance. A single object, small enough to hold in one hand, yet resistant to every attempt at understanding. And this is where the contradiction begins. The object is known as the Phaistos Disc. Discovered over a century ago, it presents a message, clearly intentional, meticulously arranged, yet written in a script that has never been deciphered, not partially understood, not debated in fragments, completely unreadable. What if this was not simply a lost language? What if it represents a method of communication that existed briefly, then vanished without trace? Or perhaps something even more unsettling, what if we are not missing the translation, but the entire context in which it was meant to be understood? Because the Phaistos Disc does not merely challenge interpretation. It challenges expectation itself. To understand why this object is so disruptive, one must step into the world of the Minoan civilization, a society that flourished on the island of Crete during the Bronze Age. This was a culture of remarkable sophistication. Their palaces, such as those at Knossos and Phaistos, were complex architectural achievements. Their art depicted fluid motion and vibrant life. Their trade networks stretched across the Mediterranean. And importantly, they wrote. The Minoans used scripts known today as Linear A and, later, Linear B. Linear B has been deciphered, revealing an early form of Greek. Linear A, however, remains largely unreadable, though its structure is recognizable. It behaves like a conventional script, repeated symbols, patterns, administrative uses. Scholars can analyze it, even if they cannot fully translate it. But here is the unsettling part. The Phaistos Disc does not resemble Linear A. It does not resemble Linear B. It does not resemble any known writing system of the ancient world. The symbols are not drawn, they are stamped. Each character pressed into clay using individual seals, arranged in a spiral that winds inward toward the center. This is not myth. This is clay. And it does not belong where it was found. The disc was uncovered in 1908 by the Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier at the palace site of Phaistos. The excavation itself was methodical, part of a broader effort to uncover the remains of Minoan civilization. Pernier and his team were working through layers of collapsed structures, rooms filled with debris, fragments of pottery, and the remnants of daily life frozen in time. Then, within a subterranean chamber, partially collapsed, shadowed and silent, the disc appeared. It was intact. Fired clay, roughly 15 centimeters in diameter, with symbols arranged in a precise spiral on both sides. Nearby were other artifacts, but nothing quite like this. No duplicates, no fragments, no related inscriptions. And this is where the tension deepens. Because archaeological discoveries are rarely isolated in meaning. Objects are usually contextualized by their surroundings. Pottery styles repeat. Scripts appear in multiple locations. Tools show continuity of use. But the Phaistos Disc stands alone. There is no second example. There is no transitional form. There is no evolutionary trace. History does not break easily. But here it bends. The physical characteristics of the disc only intensify the mystery. It contains 241 impressions made from 45 distinct symbols. These symbols include human figures, animals, tools, and abstract shapes. Each one is sharply defined, suggesting the use of carved stamps rather than freehand inscription. This implies a level of planning and standardization that is strikingly advanced for its time. In fact, the technique resembles a primitive form of printing, centuries, even millennia, before printing is believed to have been developed. Each symbol was likely created as an individual seal, then pressed into the soft clay before firing. This raises an immediate question. If this method existed, where are the other examples? Because technologies do not typically appear once and disappear without leaving a trace. They evolve, spread, and influence other practices. Yet here, the method seems to exist in isolation. Scholars have attempted to analyze the symbols statistically. Patterns have been identified. Certain signs repeat at regular intervals, suggesting structure, perhaps words or grammatical markers. The spiral arrangement may indicate a reading direction, likely from the outer edge inward. But despite these efforts, no translation has been universally accepted. Not a single word has been definitively understood. And this is not due to lack of effort. Linguists, cryptographers, and historians have studied the disc for decades. Comparisons have been made with known scripts, both within and beyond the Aegean region. Some have proposed connections to Anatolian languages, others to Semitic systems. A few have even suggested it represents a syllabary similar to linear A. But none of these interpretations hold consistently. Because the disc resists alignment, the mainstream academic position remains cautious. Most scholars agree that the Phaistos Disc is likely a genuine artifact from the Minoan period, dating to around the 2nd millennium BCE. It is considered an example of an unknown script, possibly used for ritual, administrative, or communicative purposes. Yet even within this cautious framework, uncertainty dominates. Some have suggested it could be a form of hymn or prayer, given its repetitive structure. Others propose it may record a list, perhaps of offerings or names. There are theories that it represents a game, a mnemonic device, or even a form of coded message. And then there are more controversial interpretations, though still grounded in scholarly debate. A minority of researchers have questioned the authenticity of the disc itself, suggesting it could be a modern forgery introduced into the excavation. However, this view is not widely accepted, as the material composition and context of discovery align with other Minoan artifacts. Still, the fact that such a question can even be asked reveals the depth of the uncertainty. Because when an object refuses to be understood, doubt begins to spread outward, not just about the object but about the frameworks used to interpret it. And this is where the Phaistos Disc becomes more than an artifact. It becomes a boundary, a limit to what can be reconstructed from the past. It reminds us that not all knowledge is recoverable, that some systems of meaning may be so context-dependent, so culturally specific, that once lost, they cannot be rebuilt. The disc does not offer partial clarity. It offers none. And in that silence, it forces a different kind of reflection. Because the assumption underlying much of historical study is that with enough evidence, enough comparison, enough time, the past can be understood. Languages can be decoded. Symbols can be translated. Patterns can be recognized. But the Phaistos Disc stands as a quiet counterpoint to that assumption. It suggests that there are limits not just to knowledge but to interpretation itself. And perhaps that is the most unsettling aspect of all. Not that the disc is mysterious, but that it may remain so indefinitely. Because if a message can be preserved perfectly in clay, yet rendered meaningless by the loss of its context, then what does that say about the fragility of communication? What does it mean for the countless other messages that have already been lost? The Phaistos Disc does not demand belief in the extraordinary. It does not require speculation beyond the bounds of evidence. Its power lies in something far more restrained. It exists. It was created with intention, carries a message, and yet that message is inaccessible. Not hidden, not encrypted, not partially revealed, simply beyond reach. And so it remains, a silent spiral of symbols, turning inward, leading nowhere we can follow. A reminder that history, for all its structure and certainty, is not complete. That even in the most studied civilizations, there are gaps that cannot be filled. And that sometimes the past does not speak, not because it has nothing to say, but because we no longer understand how to listen.